Did you know that once upon a time a town danced itself to death? In the heat of summer in the year 1518, nestled within the borders of what was then the Holy Roman Empire, a peculiar phenomenon took place in the town of Strasbourg. It was a spectacle so bizarre, so inexplicable, that it has puzzled historians and scientists for centuries. They call it the Dancing Plague of 1518, a strange contagion of uncontrollable dancing that seized the town's inhabitants, leading them, quite literally, to dance themselves to death. It all began with one woman, Frau Trophäa. On a seemingly ordinary day, Frau Trophäa stepped onto the streets and began to dance. There was no music to guide her steps, no festive occasion to warrant such behavior, yet there she was, swaying, spinning, and stomping on the cobblestone streets, her body moving in a rhythm all its own. But the truly peculiar part was not her spontaneous dance. It was the fact that she couldn't stop. Day turned into night, and yet Frau Trophäa danced on. And as the sun rose the next morning, her feet were still moving, her body still swaying to a silent tune. Word spread quickly about the dancing woman. They watched in bewilderment, curiosity, and growing concern. What was happening to Frau Trophäa? Was she ill, possessed, or was this some form of protest, a statement against some perceived injustice? And then something even more unsettling happened. Others began to join her. One by one, the townsfolk began to dance, their bodies moving in the same relentless rhythm. First it was a handful, then a dozen, and soon hundreds were dancing in the streets of Strasbourg, unable to stop, just like Frau Trophäa. And just like that, Frau Trophäa set off a dance that would become a deadly plague. As the days passed, the dancing epidemic did not stop. Instead, it spread. It was like a wildfire, consuming all in its path, a bizarre and inexplicable phenomenon that leapt from one person to another. Each day, more and more townsfolk found themselves caught in this relentless rhythm, their bodies moving to a tune only they could hear. This was no festive jig or joyful waltz. The townspeople didn't dance with smiles on their faces or laughter in their eyes. No, their expressions were those of fear and confusion, their bodies writhing in what seemed to be a mixture of panic and pain. The town officials watched in growing horror as the spectacle unfolded. They were men of reason, used to dealing with clear-cut issues like crop yields and trade disputes. Now, they were faced with an invisible enemy, an intangible force that controlled their people like marionettes. They were powerless, and they knew it. And the numbers. Oh, the numbers. By the time the plague reached its peak, around 400 dancers had succumbed to this inexplicable compulsion. 400 souls, young and old, rich and poor, all of them dancing, dancing, dancing as if their lives depended on it. But each day the toll it took on their bodies grew heavier. Their feet were blistered and bloody, their faces gaunt with exhaustion. Yet they could not stop. They could not rest. The dance demanded their obedience, and they were helpless to resist. In the midst of it all, there was a chilling silence. No music filled the air, no melodies to dictate the tempo or harmonies to soften the madness. The only sounds were the shuffling of feet, the gasps for breath, and the occasional cry of despair. The town was now a dance floor, but the music was nowhere to be found. The rhythm of life had been replaced by the rhythm of the plague, a grotesque parody of merriment and joy. The dance continued, and the town waited in fear of what would come next. As the town danced in despair, the authorities scrambled for a solution. Theories swirled around the dancing plague like a cyclone, each more perplexing and intriguing than the last. Was it a curse from a spiteful saint? A collective hysteria sparked by stress? Or perhaps a physiological reaction to a mysterious fungi? The town officials and medical professionals of the time were just as baffled. The understanding of the human mind and body was in its infancy, and the dancing plague defied all logic. They proposed myriad solutions, each more unorthodox than the last. The prevailing theory was hot blood. The belief was that the afflicted had hot blood, and the only way to cure them was to let the fever run its course. To facilitate this, the authorities took an unusual approach. They constructed a stage in the heart of the town and hired musicians to play day and night. The idea was to encourage the dancers to keep moving, to keep dancing until they dropped from exhaustion and their fever broke. But the hot stage approach, as it came to be known, was a catastrophic failure. Instead of curing the dancers, it only seemed to energize them, drawing in more and more townsfolk to join the frenzied dance. The music played on, but so did the dancers. The death toll began to rise. Exhaustion, heart attacks, strokes, and other complications claimed the lives of the dancers one by one. The town officials watched in horror as their solution turned into a macabre spectacle. The musicians played on, their merry tunes a chilling contrast to the grim scene unfolding before them. Attempts to stop the plague were futile. The dancers continued to dance, their bodies moving of their own accord, seemingly possessed by an unseen force. The more they danced, the more they died. The town was in a grip of a dance of death. The dancing plague of 1518 remains one of the most bizarre and tragic events in history, a testament to the power of the unknown and the resilience of the human spirit. As mysteriously as it began, the dancing plague came to an end. Suddenly, as if someone had turned off a switch, the dancing stopped. After nearly 2 grueling months of ceaseless, exhausting movement, the townsfolk of Strasbourg finally rested. The streets that had once been filled with the eerie sight of dancing bodies were now quiet. It was as if the town had awoken from a strange, fevered dream. But what could have possibly caused such an inexplicable event? Over the centuries, many theories have been proposed. Some of them are as bizarre as the event itself, while others seem to offer more plausible explanations. One of the earliest and most enduring theories is that of food poisoning. Specifically, a type of mold called ergot, which is known to grow on rye and other grains. Ergot produces a substance similar to LSD, which can cause hallucinations and erratic behavior. Could the townsfolk of Strasbourg have unknowingly consumed bread made from ergot-infected grain? It's certainly possible. However, this theory doesn't fully explain why the dancing plague affected only a specific town and didn't spread to other areas where the same bread might have been consumed. Which brings us to another widely discussed theory: mass hysteria. Also known as collective obsessional behavior, this psychological phenomenon occurs when a group of people, influenced by social factors, begin to act in a certain way. In the case of Strasbourg, the stress of harsh living conditions and a series of natural disasters might have triggered a mass psychogenic illness, manifesting as an uncontrollable urge to dance. But here's the catch. While mass hysteria can explain how the dancing plague spread once it began, it doesn't shed light on why it started in the first place. What was the initial trigger that set off this bizarre chain reaction? Unfortunately, despite the multitude of theories, there is still no consensus among scientists and historians. The dancing plague of 1518 remains an enigma, a testament to the strange and sometimes inexplicable nature of human behavior. As we delve deeper into the mysteries of the past, we are constantly reminded of how much we still have to learn. The dancing plague of 1518 is a stark example of this, a puzzle that continues to baffle and intrigue us more than 500 years after it occurred. With every theory we consider, we are left with more questions than answers. Was it a biological reaction to a toxic substance, a psychological response to extreme stress, or perhaps something else entirely, something we have yet to discover? The truth, it seems, remains as elusive as the dancing plague itself. And so, we are left to ponder and speculate, to delve into the annals of history and piece together the fragments of a story that continues to mystify us. The dancing plague of 1518 remains one of history's most bizarre and unexplained events. And so the town danced, and then it stopped, leaving behind a mystery for the ages. The dancing plague of 1518 remains one of history's most inexplicable phenomena. A town consumed by an uncontrollable urge to dance, the contagion spreading like wildfire, and the desperate attempts to end the bizarre plague. It's a tale that continues to baffle and intrigue us. Theories abound, from mass hysteria to ergot poisoning, yet none provide a definitive answer. This unexplained event, frozen in the annals of history, serves as a stark reminder of the enigmatic nature of the human mind and body. It's a dance that has echoed through the centuries, its rhythm still pulsating in the heart of the unknown. What do you think caused the dancing plague? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this dive into history's mysteries, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more. Until the next dance, stay curious.